Yeah, I have a lot more stories. We're not going to get them all in here,
Oh
but yeah.
no, that's
We're
why
gonna need another session with you for sure, Ed.
absolutely. Hold on a second, and let's see. There's before we do that.
So as I said before, in 84 and 85, I wasn't on staff any longer, but your parents graciously let me stay in their guest room of your house. I would come up on a Friday night after work. I'd get up there like after midnight. They'd leave the front door open, and I just tiptoe up the steps and go into the guest room. And I did that every other weekend. So every other weekend, I was putting like 700 miles on my car. You know, some of the crazy stuff you do
Wow.
as a young person.
Hey Ed, did you notice we've got someone else joined us?
Yes, I do. Yeah, the Dietsche man. Yeah.
I tried to sneak that in.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, right in mid story. Yeah. Doug Dietsche. Yeah, we talked a few weeks ago, like you said, and I told him that when Ed was coming on, we would love to just kind of.
Yeah.
Doug, how you doing? Thanks for
Yeah,
joining.
can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And Doug, you said
I'm not in Maine tonight. I'm in Ohio actually, but so
Oh boy.
in a hotel room. So
All right. Thanks for doing this. Yeah.
when you were on, Doug, you said you wanted to reconnect with Ed.
yeah.
And Ed shared that you guys have actually reconnected.
Yeah, we have. It's been great. We haven't actually talked to each other, you know.
We
but
texted back and forth. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, here you go.
Yeah. So we've had a debate about the a cabin that I think we stayed in. Ed said we didn't.
No.
Oh, here we go, Tom.
Yeah.
Because after my fourth summer on staff, which was 1980, last summer on music staff, I made a vow to myself I didn't want to live in Boys Park anymore.
Right.
Too many throwing rocks incidents, right?
I got tired of walking up that hill. And yeah, the rock fights, I don't remember. I remember guys throwing rocks at cabins, not at people. They would throw a rock at a cabin to scare somebody, you know.
Well, it's a slippery slope. If you're throwing at buildings, you're going to throw at people eventually, right?
Yeah, well, I never saw that. Yeah.
I love how Doug comes on the call and immediately is poking the bear, Don. Like, right?
That's what happens in Maine. Yeah, they're used to that.
Yeah, the black bears, the Maine black bears. Yeah.
So you're thinking because you made a vow, Ed, not to live in Boys Park anymore, that this is fiction. That's
because the 81, 82, and 83, I was in a cabin down by the field house.
Yeah, I remember the field house, but like I was telling Ed, we were going back and forth. I'm like, I don't remember this cabin where it was exactly, but it was isolated. That's all I remember. And that I didn't want to stay there because we would be out of the community. But
the point cabin, that's isolated.
Yeah, it was. Ed found a picture of what someone called Caesar's Palace. Maybe that was it. I don't know. It's too long ago. So
yeah, was it possible you stayed there when you helped out? Like you in some of your notes, you said you took 2 weeks leave, and you helped out for 2 weeks up at the end of the summer or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember you convinced me to stay there, and I didn't want to. That's what I remember.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Well, you didn't want to, but Ed had that power over you, so you did stay there.
Seniority, maybe. Yeah, I'm guessing from talking to Doug and Ed had just a little bit of seniority before Doug came from East Aurora to join. Maybe 2 or 3 years. So, by the way, Doug, East Aurora's getting a lot of snow tonight. So my daughter's very happy. She's going to get a snow day. So
yeah. I like I said, I'm in Ohio right now, and I was just looking at my travel plans for tomorrow, and I don't think I'm going through Buffalo. I'm going to have to go across Pennsylvania and then head north.
Yeah,
so.
There's a band, and we're hoping we're just above it. But
Right.
Jimmy Olsen, Caesar's Palace. Jimmy Olsen's I'm gonna send this to him, or hopefully he just watches it anyway. But he would know, I promise, exactly where that is, and he'll get it all sorted out.
Get to the bottom of this.
He will get to the bottom of this. And so Ed, one of the memories that I had from a summer, and the way I seem to remember it was I I kind of I bypassed Boys Park when I joined staff as a young, maybe 14, 15-year-old. And I stayed at home until I had the opportunity to go in the fieldhouse cabins when some of those older guys went back to college, and someone like, you and Steve Lutz were nice enough to say, because you knew me from postseason, hey, why don't you come down here for the last couple of weeks? There's a bunk open. We did that. And then at the end of the summer, there was a one movie theater in town, and they were playing. I remember two movies that I watched there, and I went with you and Steve Lutz, and it was Raiders of the Lost Ark one year, and it was Rocky 3 the next. And I can't remember which one it was, but we went in. So Steve had a car, and I got in the back seat, and so Steve was driving. You were in the passenger seat, and it was like I want to say a foggy night or a rainy night or whatever. There was a lot of condensation on the windshield, and we just pull out of camp. We're on Route 8 or Route 30 rather, going up to the theater, and he takes a rag off of he had a rag there right on his dash. He takes it, opens the window, reaches out, and like does the windshield like this. And you go to Steve, hey, I have the same defrost in my car.
Probably didn't work too well, yeah.
No, but you both had cars, but I remember thinking the cars were, barely kept together. And I guess my point is that it's so interesting for me to look at the screen, and I see you and Tom and Doug, and all three of you have this common bond of you made life decisions after, spending summer at camp to stay in the postseason. And it obviously wasn't for the money, or you could have afforded a car with the defrost. So you each had your reasons to stay. And I feel like I got a taste of it from each of you. I just wonder, like, maybe if you could expand on what it was that led you to be like, I need a little more time to figure out like my future, and here's maybe a place where I could do it. And Doug, you gave a great talking about Dickie Tague, and you both, but I maybe just kind of jump in and build on that.
Well, the one thing I want to jump in on is that car sounds like everyone I knew who had a VW Bug. That's what they had to do.
That's funny.
Always had to wipe the snow off the windshield because the defroster never worked because the engine's in the back.
Yeah, I learned how to drive a stick shift from Rob Deckerman's VW Bug.
Yeah,
nice.
I stayed up in postseason, and he was going to DeVry Tech, which was a tech school in Jersey, and they weren't going to start till later in September. So he stayed up a few weeks, and he could not believe I didn't know how to drive a stick shift. And so he said, in my 2 or 3 weeks here, you're going to learn how to drive a stick shift. So those camp roads were perfect for me to learn because there was nobody there,
right?
To get in the way. And so that's how I learned how to drive a stick shift on Rob Deckerman's VW Bug.
Love it.
So I should have put like a slide together for this to introduce this segment, Don, but this is like the get in touch with your feelings segment, right? So where the three of us were postseason camp workers, all trying to figure out what we're doing with our life. And I mean, it's amazing that we each had that experience, and that the Purdy's gave us the opportunity to figure it out while we were in the Adirondacks. It was just amazing. Doug, we heard some of yours. I think you were debating between military life, right? I mean, that's kind of a commitment.
Right.
I was figuring out what I was going to do with my life for college. Ed, I think you were similar as well.
Yeah, I only went 1 year of college at Temple University in Philly. And so that was a little bit of a difficult conversation I had to have with my parents when they came up on vacation for their week at camp. I had already predetermined in my mind that I did not want to go back to college for my sophomore year. And so I remember sitting on the bed in Mohawk, whatever number Mohawk accommodation there up on the hill behind the auditorium. and telling my parents, so this would have been the summer of 80, that I did not want to go back. And I think I might have already mentioned that to Don's dad. And he said that they would probably be an opportunity if I wanted to stay up in the fall to work with Jerry during the week and in Woodlands on the weekends for the retreats. And so, yeah, that's how that came about.
What's really interesting about both of your stories is that they occurred before mine. I thought I was special. It turns out you guys paved the way for me to have the same opportunity you did. So thank you.
Yeah, well, what's really neat now, if you go on camp's website now, they have a LIFT program, LIFT, and that stands for Leaders in Further Training. And what that is are for kids like we were, who don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And it's very mission-based. It's very hiking-based. And so they have a group of about 20 kids, ages 19 to 28, that are up there in that postseason, and they become the staff then to wait on those weekend retreat groups also.
Yeah,
so
I did that.
It fulfills two purposes: them trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives, whether going back to college or going onto the mission field, or whatever. So that's a great program they have now that they obviously didn't have it back then.
We were just a pilot program for that.
Yeah, 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 yep.
Yeah, you say though, like they were special, Tom. They were like Doug and Ed and the relationships that we were able to build during that time. But honestly, there weren't many. Like I remember Jeff Stevenson. I remember Steve Lutz, who we've mentioned. Tom, when you were there, we went to Houghton together. We were there in the summer, of course, and then I went back to Houghton, so I wasn't there. Kind of the same thing happened when Steve Bain stayed on in 1990. But I'm hard pressed sitting here right now thinking who else there was that stayed during those times. There were some folks that lived in Speculator, Kevin Schoonmaker and Artie Page, but
Marilyn Tanner was a waitress.
Yep.
A waitress in Woodlands, and then she would do the housekeeping of Woodlands, like
Good
for
call.
the changeovers. Yeah,
Good call. And Lois too.
Yeah.
But man, they're I'm not thinking of too many beyond. This group right here.
I'm sure there's plenty more. We just don't know who they are.
Yeah, maybe we don't know.
Yeah.
You might ask your dad. He might have a whole list.
He would. Yeah. He's unpacking still a lot of from those years since recent developments. But this is great. The common denominator.
So question for you guys. So I typically ask a question after you read Don's book. Did any memories come back to mind? After you guys reconnected, did any new memories come to mind?
Oh my gosh, we got so many text messages. It's hard to believe, I mean, we just kept going back and forth about things, clarifying things. Ed would fill in the gaps about certain things, like, they're all minor. I don't think I can't,
we drove around the lake in your pickup truck. It was a Nissan, I think.
Yeah, that was after I was in the military. Yeah, I came back. I had a little Nissan 4x4 and.
Right, and we drove around the lake, and we found this little side area where there was like a trailer there that looked like, was totally shot,
Like a Unabomber lived there or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
We pulled his truck into the driveway and took pictures like it was our place or something, and we looked at each other and said, "Let's get out of here before someone with a shotgun comes out."
Probably smart, yeah.
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 Don, sometime in our intro, ask me about riding my bike around the lake.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
All right. Ask me about when I was about to get my license and I had my permit, and my dad and I drove around the lake in the brown van that we had that at least a couple of you would remember. And I way underestimated how sharp a hairpin turn was. We were on two wheels for a bit, and there was a fulcrum point that was 50-50, a little wind. And anyway, yeah, yeah. But Ed, one of the when we talked to Phyllis Bird earlier, she had mentioned that I had heard Beth Markell told me that she and Jerry, had come back to camp in coming back to camp. You were part of that?
No, well, I think it was much earlier. I think it was in 2002 or something.
Oh, was it that? Okay, I'm sorry.
Chuck Wong, Chucky, and his wife invited them up to stay at their place.
Okay.
And so I think that was the last time they were there.
Okay.
More recently, I've been, because I go to visit Phyllis, and here's the shame of like not staying in touch all these years. I reconnect with Phyllis and the boys and Julia at Jerry's memorial service.
Oh.
The only reason I was there was Jim Brake saw it on Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook yet. I only got on Facebook because of your book, reading your book. So that's this past July.
Yeah.
So Jim Brake saw the obituary and where it was going to be and everything. And so I went out there and I walked into the back of that church, and Julia saw me first. And I looked at her. I said, do you remember me? Because she was little the last time I saw her, I think, And she goes, I have pictures of you holding me as a little baby,
Oh, wow.
So she was first. And then Jonathan spied me from up front, and he made a beeline for me at the back of the church, and he just threw his arms around me and hugged me, and he said, "Hey, big brother."
Oh.
Like, wow. And then so I'm in line waiting to go see Phyllis up the front, but he jumped back there, and so then when I got up there, she didn't really recognize me right away. And so I said, I'm your adoptive son from Pennsylvania. And she goes, Ed, so that's what I always said, when come up to visit them or something, or during camp, that I was her adopted son from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Ed and I spent a lot of time with Jerry and Phyllis and the kids, and Ed obviously a lot more than me because I was only up there for 3 years, but it was always like we were over there. Like I remember when Jerry and Phyllis were building their house, and just all that kind of stuff. And
yeah, I helped put some insulation in that house.
Yeah. It was a lot of good times and stuff. Unfortunately for me, I had to get off Facebook because there are some nefarious things going on. So I had to eliminate my account a couple years ago, but I was friends with Jerry and Phyllis on Facebook. But now I'm back on, obviously in a very limited sense. But I just feel like I missed the whole Jerry memorial, and I feel bad about that because I would have gone also, but
yeah.
I didn't know about it.
Right, yeah, and like I said, I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for Jim Brake texting that to me. Yeah,
right.
We're going to see Jerry again.
Oh yeah.
And
that's been put in front of my face recently, listening to a speaker on a radio show saying we get so wrapped up in this life here on earth because we're human, but if we love the Lord, we're going to see him in glory, and we're going to see all our family members and friends who love the Lord in eternity, and that's going to be forever. So we're going to see them a lot longer on the back end, so to speak.
As a baseball fan, I saw something on Facebook where it's a picture of a baseball team, and the team just hit a walk-off homer, and the whole team is waiting at home plate as the player comes around third base to welcome him, and you could just see the excitement. And someone made the equation like, this is what heaven's going to be like.
Hey guys, we're gonna get cut off. We have like 20 seconds.
Okay.
That's a 14, yeah.
Can we do 10 minutes more, like on another?
I'm free.
We've never done it. You guys, 10 more
I'm
minutes.
free.
You want to
I'm
jump
free.
on one more time?
Yeah.
So take another break and come back.
Oh, here we go. We're back.
Now we're-
Oh, Doug, you were saying.
Yeah, so we were talking about baseball and the welcoming into heaven, and then like I said, I didn't know anything about baseball, and Ed he would teach me things like I didn't even know what a hit was. I mean, I literally knew nothing, and Ed knows everything about baseball and the Phillies. I learned more about the Phillies and baseball every minute I was with Ed than I ever did my whole life. So
All
That's
right.
amazing.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Well, as I shared with Don, when I was up there on postseason in the fall of '80, I watched the Phillies win the World Series against the Royals in Don's house. You said Steve Lutz watched the Eagles in winter of '81. That was me.
Oh, okay. He was there. Maybe it was the next winter he was there.
Yeah. So
Okay.
'81, I saw the Eagles lose to the Oakland Raiders because Ron Jaworski decided his favorite receiver was the linebacker of the Raiders, Rod Martin, with 2 or 3 interceptions.
He should have studied more film to realize that's a bad idea.
Yeah. And then the other thing I remember watching the Sixers in '83 on your Uncle Doug and Aunt Carolyn's house there by the lake. That's where I watched them win the title over the Lakers. So some fun sports memories up there.
Well, yeah, I had you mentioned Tim Strube, so I had no internet, newspaper. I barely followed a newspaper. We had no TV in the summer. I have 2 distinctive, before we get back to that heaven analogy, which I saw on Facebook, which I'd love to get your take on. But I remember I was in the dining hall, 1979, August of 1979, and I was a huge Yankee fan. I had just gone to my first game in Yankee Stadium with my Uncle Johnny Johansson and my grandfather Johansson as a 10-year-old in '77, and it was Jackson, and so '79, and we're there in the dining hall, and Tim Strube came up to me and said, "Hey man, Thurman Munson just got killed," and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
"Hey, what? That's not. What do you do? That's not a joke. That's not funny. What are you talking about?" He goes, "No, he died in a plane crash." I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?" I couldn't.
Yeah.
It was so shocking to me, so matter of fact. But then 4 years later, or 3 years later, '82, we were there. And I'm pretty sure you told me, hey, and I was a huge Sixer fan, and they had lost, to the Lakers with Magic Johnson as a rookie, and lost to the Celtics in the finals a couple of years in a row. And he said,
They lost to Portland. They lost to Bill Walton in Portland in '76.
okay,
They made like 3 finals and lost every time.
yeah, including the Celtics after having a 3-1 lead in the series. And we said, hey, they just got Moses Malone. And I'm like, oh, tell me you're not kidding. And they did. And of course, they won it the next year. But so, yeah, the sports things were huge. But and music, Tom and I have a lot of music memories that tie us into the same thing. When I think to this Facebook post that I saw that it's been making rounds of the walk-off home run and the team waiting for that guy to come around third, and they're just can't wait to just give him a huge hug. And if that's anything like what heaven's going to be like when you see Jerry Bird again and others, and I think I say it as if it could be like, it's probably going to be so much greater than that.
Much better.
Oh, yeah. We can't comprehend it. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be amazing.
So I started to ask you guys, and I think you said you still continue to go up to camp, right?
Yeah, I tag along with my sister and brother-in-law and their family. We had 16 at the table up in the dining hall this past summer.
Oh, that's fun. Doug, do you continue to go up? Okay.
I've never been a guest at camp ever. The only time I've been there is when I've worked. And interesting enough, because I had to leave Maine to come to Ohio for some family reasons. I actually drove through Speculator the other day,
Yeah.
and it was cloudy, foggy, snowy. I was going to stop and take some pictures, but there was nothing to take pictures of because you couldn't see anything. The roads were literally covered in snow.
Are you going back through though on your way home?
No, because the weather tomorrow in Buffalo, if I went that route, I would go up through Buffalo and then head west and then up through Rome, New York, and that area, and end up in Speculator. But with the weather way, the lake of storms
don't take any chances. Yeah, with the weather.
I'm gonna have to just head east across Pennsylvania tomorrow. So unfortunately,
okay. Well, so we're gonna wrap up the call, but I'm just curious if Don and I were to get a group to do a reunion at camp, would that be something you're interested in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Sure.
Now, here's something that when Doug was on last with us with Tom, Doug had a great question, and I would love to explore this. So you were both talking about preseason, and Doug, you brought up the fact that you watched Punk Vance's episode where he had to break into Woodlands with a butter knife in Alaska, and you asked Tom, he's like, "You had a master key, right?" So
Yep.
Ed, did you have a master key when you were posting?
I had some, yeah. But I lived in the salt box when I was there for year round. Mm-hmm. And so right next to the salt box was washing tons where camp did all their laundry. Mm-hmm. And if you had a knife, you could pop that door open. You didn't need the key because it was a double door. So the pins go into the ground and into the header, and you could slide them down to get in there. So that's where I did my laundry because it was so right next door to where I was living. And I just kept a low profile. I didn't want to announce that to the world now that I have done it many years later.
Statute of limitations.
Run out.
So,
but many fond memories up there. Like not too much on the prank side of thing, but adventures. Lots of stories, adventures. Yeah. I got some Pasico Airport stuff I could share with you. But,
all right.
That's for another time.
And I'm balancing that out too because there's a story I shared about watching the Olympics in 1980 in that room, and when you wrote me about an experience that you had in that room because of your familiarity with and being around, and you busted the doors open and found a big surprise in the room. I will be writing about that.
My jaw hit the floor. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
For you, it was just a room where you were going to catch the NFL scores, but what was going on in that room? What a teaser! I'm proud of myself.
Oh my God!
Here's another teaser. Did you know your grandfather owned a pistol?
I think I heard he might have had one, but I don't ever remember him with it.
All right, I saw him with it.
Well, like I told you,
another teaser.
Like I told you, Don. Once that Edward is a Garrow story.
Yeah,
it's like now it all makes sense about things like that. So
yeah.
People
weren't afraid to protect themselves.
Got to read the book.
I think Grandpa might have been ready. Like, I hope. What if somebody busts into Washington's with a butter knife? All right. To be continued, gentlemen.
One thing I want to say before we go on this session is that after we recorded my session and then it was posted, my wife watched it. She just loves you two guys. She's like, oh man, those guys, Tom and Don, man. They really put on a good show. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, but I'm pretty sure she means Don. It's okay.
But in reference to that, when I watched Jackie's podcast, my wife was not a camp person. So that's why we've never gone there. I've driven her by it, but she's like, she doesn't get it. Like Jackie said, it's got to be in your blood.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why we haven't been there.
She put it well.
Interesting. We had similar experiences there where, she said her husband didn't like the
schedule.
Yeah. So you got to get used to that, but
Yeah.
more to it.
We've only hit the surface.
Well, no, because Doug, you wrote so much, and I really want that story about your movie trip to Gloversville to come out. That's classic.
Yeah, that was quite a night. Let's put it that way.
But that's a teaser. We're not gonna say any more.
All right.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Yes, Ed, thank you so much. Good to see you again.
All right. Yep. You guys have a good week, and looking forward to the next podcast.
Hey, Ed, great to see you. And as when Don invited me tonight, he said we're gonna shoot the breeze.
Yeah. Oh, and Kim Pasquini, Kim Hawks always said, "Oh, when I saw Ed, we were during the basketball games. We were the Thursday night game. She was like, we were always like, Ed, shoot." Like, okay. Didn't know
when I was on the 7th grade basketball team in junior high school, they called me by my last name, and I'm at mid-court, and the other team's looking at us like, "Why are you telling them to shoot now? Don't you want to get closer to the basket?" Yeah.
That's right.
Got a crazy range.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.
All right,
Thanks.
we'll see you guys.
Merry Christmas. All right.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you and your families.
Yep, you too. Good.